Captain Sarah Chun stared at the massive alien ships through the viewing window of her vessel, the Endeavor. The three ships were unlike anything humanity had ever built. They moved without visible engines, their hulls gleaming with a strange blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Captain, they're hailing us," Lieutenant Rodriguez said from his station. His voice shook slightly. This was humanity's first contact with alien life, and everyone on the bridge felt the weight of history. "Open the channel," Sarah ordered, straightening her uniform. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a child reading stories about space exploration. Now it was real. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a creature that defied description. It stood tall on 6 legs, with skin that looked like polished metal. Its face had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and when it spoke, the words came from a device that translated its language into perfect English. "Unknown vessel. You have entered Confederation space without permission. Identify yourselves." Sarah stepped forward. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent life forms." The alien tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human. "Earth, we are not familiar with this world. You will follow us to Station Kepler 7 for processing." The journey to the station took 3 days. During that time, Sarah and her crew learned they had encountered the Galactic Confederation, an alliance of 47 different species that controlled most of the galaxy. The aliens seemed curious about humans, but treated them like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. Station Kepler 7 was enormous, easily the size of Earth's moon. Ships from dozens of different species docked at its ports. Sarah had never seen such diversity of life. Some aliens were made of what looked like living crystal. Others seemed to be made of gas held together by energy fields. A few looked almost human, except for their silver skin and completely black eyes. The station's commander was Admiral Vector of the Hegemony species. He was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and long fingers that ended in sharp points. When he met Sarah and her diplomatic team in his office, he seemed more amused than impressed. "So you are the humans," Vector said, looking them up and down like a scientist examining insects. "We have reviewed your ship's technology. Very interesting. You still use chemical rockets for propulsion. And these weapons you carry, they fire small pieces of metal using explosive powder." Sarah felt her cheeks burn. "Our technology may seem simple, but it's effective. We've learned to make the most of what we have." Vector laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Oh, I'm sure it was very effective against other humans. But you must understand, we have been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. Our ships can cross the galaxy in weeks. Our weapons can turn entire moons to dust." Another alien entered the room. This one was even more intimidating than Vector. It looked like a giant lizard walking on 2 legs, with scales that seemed to absorb light. Sarah's translator identified it as Admiral Zethkri of the Vorthic Empire, the military arm of the Confederation. "These are the new species everyone is talking about?" Zethkri's voice was deep and rough, like grinding stones. "They look fragile. Are you sure they're not just another form of space monkey?" "That's enough," Vector said, but he was still smiling. "Admiral Zethkri, these humans have achieved spaceflight. That makes them worthy of at least basic respect." Zethkri snorted. "Spaceflight with chemical rockets. My hatchlings build better toys." Sarah's diplomatic training kicked in before her temper could take control. "We understand our technology appears primitive to you. That's why we're here. We want to learn, to join the galactic community. Join?" Zethkri laughed so hard that his scales rattled. "Little human, you don't join the Confederation. You earn membership through strength, wisdom, or usefulness. What can your species offer us?" Sarah had prepared for this question. "We're excellent problem solvers. Humans are creative, adaptable. We survive in environments that would kill most species. We could contribute to your alliance." Vector nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps. But first, you must prove you can exist peacefully in galactic society. Many young species destroy themselves with advanced technology. We've handled nuclear weapons for over a century without destroying ourselves," Sarah pointed out. "Nuclear weapons?" Zefkri looked confused. "You mean atomic fission? How quaint. We stopped using such primitive energy sources before your species learned to walk upright." The meeting continued for hours. Sarah presented humanity's case for membership in the Confederation. She showed them Earth's art, music, and literature. She explained human achievements in science and medicine. But every presentation was met with polite interest at best and open mockery at worst. Finally, Vector made his decision. "The Confederation Council has reviewed your case. Humanity will be granted protected species status. You will be given sovereignty over a small sector on the galaxy's rim. We will provide basic technology to help you develop peacefully. Protected species?" Sarah didn't like the sound of that. "Think of it as guardianship," Vector explained. "Until your species matures, we will watch over you. Make sure you don't accidentally blow yourselves up or invade someone you can't handle. And if we refuse this protection?" Zefkri's eyes gleamed with something that might have been hunger. "Then you would be on your own in a galaxy full of species that might not be as patient as we are." Sarah looked at her team. They all had the same expression, frustrated but realistic. Humanity had hoped for partnership, but would have to accept guardianship. "We accept," Sarah said finally. "But we want it understood that this is temporary. Humans don't stay children forever." "Of course," Vector said. But his tone suggested he thought it would be a very long time before humanity grew up. As Sarah and her team returned to the Endeavor, Lieutenant Rodriguez walked beside her. "Captain, did it feel like they were reading from a script? Like they've done this before?" Sarah nodded. "Probably have. How many young species do you think they've protected over the years?" "Too many," Rodriguez said quietly. As the Endeavor prepared to return to Earth, Sarah watched the alien ships through her window again. They still looked impossibly advanced, but now she noticed something else. They moved in predictable patterns, used the same tactics, followed the same procedures. The aliens had grown comfortable, maybe even lazy. They had forgotten that the most dangerous thing in any galaxy wasn't the strongest predator or the smartest. Scientists thought it was the creature that everyone underestimated. Sarah smiled as Earth's sun grew larger on the main screen. The Confederation thought they knew humanity after one brief meeting. They thought chemical rockets and metal bullets made humans weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the command center deep beneath the Swiss Alps, watching dozens of screens that showed activities across the solar system. To anyone from the Confederation, this place would look like a primitive bunker. The truth was far different. "Status report," Marcus said to his aide, Colonel Jessica Park. "All shipyards are running at full capacity," Jessica replied. "The Mars facilities just completed another 12 heavy cruisers. The asteroid belt factories have finished a new carrier group, and the Jupiter platforms are ready for their first test." Marcus nodded. Everything was proceeding according to the plan they had started 20 years ago, when Earth's deep space sensors first detected alien signals. While the world above celebrated humanity's acceptance into galactic society, the real work happened in secret. The Endeavor had not been a simple exploration ship. It was a carefully designed intelligence-gathering mission. Every scanner, every conversation, every moment Captain Chun and her crew spent with the aliens had been recorded and analyzed. The Confederation thought they were dealing with primitive humans. They had no idea how primitive they themselves had become. "Show me the Vorthok weapon analysis," Marcus ordered. A holographic display appeared in the air, showing the alien ships that had escorted the Endeavor. Red lines highlighted their weapon systems and defenses. Their plasma cannons are impressive, Jessica said. High energy output, good range. But they're predictable. They fire in straight lines and take 12 seconds to recharge between shots. And their shields? Energy-based, designed to deflect plasma and particle beams. They're not designed to handle kinetic weapons, especially not at the velocities we can achieve. Marcus smiled grimly. The aliens had fought the same way for thousands of years. They had grown so comfortable with their technology that they couldn't imagine anything different. It was like a master swordsman who had never encountered a gun. What about their ship's construction? Lightweight materials, optimized for speed and energy efficiency. Beautiful engineering, but they're built for a galaxy where everyone follows the same rules. The rules were about to change. Marcus walked to another section of the command center, where engineers worked on humanity's secret weapons. To alien eyes, human technology looked crude. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, simple kinetic projectiles. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had learned to push these primitive technologies to their absolute limits. Dr. Webb called Engineer Thompson from his workstation. The gravity manipulation tests were successful. We can now create localized gravitational fields strong enough to crush a Confederation battleship. Excellent. And the Swarm AI project? The artificial minds are functioning perfectly. Each one can control 1,000 drone ships simultaneously while thinking faster than any alien computer we've encountered. Marcus felt a surge of pride. Humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their weapons or their ships. It was their approach to warfare. Other species had evolved beyond violence, becoming civilized and predictable. Humans had never stopped being dangerous. The elevator doors opened, and Captain Chun entered the command center. She had returned from her diplomatic mission to find herself promoted to admiral and brought into humanity's deepest secrets. Sarah, Marcus greeted her. Welcome to Project Sword and Shield. Sarah stared at the displays showing Earth's hidden military buildup. My God, Marcus. How long has this been going on? 20 years of preparation. 50 years of development before that. We knew this day would come eventually. The Confederation will consider this a betrayal. We signed peace treaties. Did we? Marcus pulled up the diplomatic documents. Read carefully, Sarah. We agreed to exist peacefully in our assigned sector. We agreed not to attack Confederation members without cause. We never agreed to remain defenseless. Sarah read through the agreements, her expression growing darker. They wrote these treaties assuming we'd never be a threat. Exactly. They see us as permanent children who need protection. They never considered that children grow up. Marcus led Sarah to a secure briefing room where Earth's military leaders waited. General Williams of the Space Marines, Admiral Rodriguez of the Fleet, and Director Nash of Intelligence all stood as Sarah entered. Admiral Chun, General Williams said, "We need to discuss the hegemony situation." Sarah frowned. What about them? Director Nash activated a holographic map of local space. Intelligence suggests the hegemony is planning to test Confederation resolve by attacking human colonies. They want to see if the Confederation will risk war to protect a minor species. And will they? Our sources say no. The Confederation values stability above all else. They'll offer sympathy and suggest we relocate to safer systems. Sarah felt anger building in her chest. They'll abandon us. Worse, Admiral Rodriguez said. They'll expect us to accept it gratefully. In their minds, losing a few human colonies is better than risking galactic war. Marcus activated another display, showing the secret fleets hidden throughout the solar system. Which is why we've been preparing for this moment. When the attack comes, and it will come, humanity will reveal its true nature. How many ships do we have? Sarah asked. 3,000 combat vessels, ranging from light destroyers to heavy dreadnoughts. Another 10,000 support ships. And approximately 50,000 automated drone fighters. Sarah's eyes widened. 50,000? The aliens fight with crews, which limits their numbers, General Williams explained. We fight with artificial minds that can control multiple ships simultaneously. One human admiral can command a fleet of 100 ships with perfect coordination. But our biggest advantage, Marcus said, is that they don't know we exist. Every alien thinks they've seen the extent of human military capability. They think we're limited to chemical rockets and metal bullets. What they don't know, Director Nash added, is that we've weaponized everything. Our primitive nuclear technology has been refined into planet crackers. Our kinetic weapons can accelerate projectiles to near light speed. And we've learned to use gravity itself as a weapon. Sarah studied the displays, beginning to understand the scope of humanity's deception. How do we maintain the secret? The ships they've seen are real, Marcus explained. Chemical rockets, metal bullets, basic technology. But they're not our main fleet. They're decoys, designed to reinforce alien assumptions about human limitations. Meanwhile, Admiral Rodriguez said, our real ships hide in asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and the dark spaces between worlds. The aliens scan for energy signatures like their own. They don't look for ships running on technologies they consider obsolete. Marcus walked to the center of the room. Sarah, you've seen how the aliens think. They're civilized, predictable, bound by conventions developed over thousands of years. They fight wars like chess games, with rules and expectations. And humans? We fight to win by any means necessary. We don't care about honor or tradition or fair play. We care about results. Sarah looked at each face in the room, seeing the same determination that had driven humanity through ice ages, world wars, and the nuclear age. When the attack comes, what's our response? Total war, General Williams said simply. Not just against the hegemony, but against the entire galactic order that allows such attacks. The Confederation will try to stop us, Director Nash warned. Let them try, Marcus said. They've had 10,000 years to build their perfect galactic society. We've had 50,000 years to perfect the art of war. Sarah nodded slowly. The Confederation thought they were protecting humanity. They thought their advanced technology and superior numbers made them invincible. They were about to discover that the most dangerous predator in any galaxy was the one everyone thought was harmless. When do we expect the attack? Sarah asked. Our intelligence suggests within 6 months, Director Nash replied. Then we have 6 months to make final preparations, Marcus said. After that, the galaxy learns what happens when you mistake human kindness for weakness. Sarah looked at the displays one more time, seeing humanity's hidden strength. The aliens thought they knew humans. They thought wrong. The galaxy was about to get a very painful education. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning. Earth Standard Time. Admiral Sarah Chen was reviewing fleet deployment reports when the emergency alarms began screaming throughout the command center. Red lights flashed as communication officers frantically worked their stations. Report, Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. Simultaneous attacks on New Geneva Kepler Station. And Harvest, Lieutenant Commander Park announced, her face pale. Hegemony fleets appeared out of nowhere and began orbital bombardment. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Those 3 colonies held over 2 million human civilians. Casualties? Unknown. Communications were cut within minutes of the attack's beginning. Dr. Marcus Webb appeared on the main screen from his location at Central Command. His face was grim. Sarah, It's worse than we expected. The hegemony isn't just testing Confederation resolve. They're trying to wipe out the entire human presence in those systems. What about Confederation response? They're calling it a regrettable territorial dispute and have offered to mediate peace talks. Sarah felt something cold and terrible settle in her chest. They're abandoning us. Worse, Admiral. Victor just sent a message suggesting we evacuate our remaining colonies to safer systems until the situation calms down. The command center fell silent except for the constant ping of incoming reports. Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing human space. 3 bright dots that represented thriving human worlds were now flashing red. Warning signals. Death markers. Admiral, Communications Officer Rodriguez said quietly. We're receiving a transmission from New Geneva. It's not good. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was weak and filled with static. This is Governor Martinez of New Geneva. The hegemony ships are bombing our cities from orbit. We have no defenses. They're targeting hospitals, schools, civilian shelters. This isn't a military attack. It's genocide. The transmission cut to static. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of 2 million souls pressing down on her shoulders. When she opened them again, her expression had changed. The diplomat was gone. In her place stood something that the galaxy hadn't seen for thousands of years. A human war leader. Dr. Webb, she said, her voice deadly calm. Activate all fleets. Every ship, every crew, every weapon system. It's time. Sarah, the Confederation will try to stop us if we respond with force. Then they can try. Sarah turned to her communication officer. Open a channel to the entire galaxy. Maximum broadcast power. Channel open, Admiral. Sarah stood before the main camera, no longer the curious explorer who had made first contact. She was something else entirely, something that made every alien who saw the broadcast take an unconscious step backward. I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Fleet, she began. 6 hours ago, the hegemony launched unprovoked attacks against 3 human colonies. They have murdered over 2 million innocent civilians. They targeted schools, hospitals, and civilian shelters. She paused, letting the words sink in across the galaxy. The Galactic Confederation has responded to this genocide by calling it a territorial dispute. They have suggested that humanity abandon our homes and run to safety, leaving our dead unburied and our murderers unpunished. Sarah's voice grew harder with each word. This will not stand. Humanity has existed for over 200,000 years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and nuclear fire. We did not crawl out of Earth's gravity while to be slaughtered like animals while the galaxy watches. She stepped closer to the camera. The hegemony chose to test human resolve. The Confederation chose to abandon their supposed principles. Both decisions will have consequences. Effective immediately, humanity declares war on the hegemony and any who support them. We demand the immediate surrender of all hegemony forces involved in today's attacks. Sarah's smile was the kind that made predators remember they could also be prey. You have mistaken our restraint for weakness, our diplomacy for submission, our small numbers for helplessness. These mistakes will be corrected. She gestured to someone off camera, and the display behind her changed to show massive fleets moving through space. Ships that the galaxy had never seen before, technologies that shouldn't exist. We offered you our hand in friendship. You responded by murdering our children. Humanity remembers its debts, and we always collect. The transmission ended. Within minutes, emergency sessions convened on every Confederation world. Admiral Vector called together his senior staff on Station Kepler 7. The same station where he had first dismissed humanity as primitive children. Analysis, Vector ordered. Sir, his intelligence officer reported. Those ships in the human broadcast, they don't match our previous scans of human technology. Obviously, they've been building new vessels. How many ships could they possibly have constructed in such a short time? That's the problem, sir. Our sensor networks show massive fleets moving throughout human space. Far more ships than should be possible. Admiral Zethkri entered the briefing room, his scaled face showing something aliens rarely displayed: uncertainty. Vector, my fleets near human space are reporting strange readings. Ships appearing where nothing was detected moments before. Stealth technology? No, something different. It's as if they were there all along, but invisible to our sensors. Vector studied the reports, feeling the first stirrings of doubt. How many ships are we talking about? Thousands, Zethkri said quietly. Maybe tens of thousands. Impossible. We've monitored human space since first contact. They don't have the infrastructure for such a fleet. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. If humans had built such a fleet in secret, what else had they hidden? Sir, the intelligence officer said hesitantly, there's something else. We're detecting massive energy signatures from the human fleet. Not plasma or particle beams, something entirely different. Show me. The main screen displayed sensor readings from human ships. The energy patterns were unlike anything in Confederation databases. They're not using standard propulsion or weapons, the officer continued. The signatures suggest technologies we've never encountered. Vector felt his confidence cracking. Get me a direct line to the Hegemony High Command. They need to understand what they've started. But even as he gave the order, Victor knew it was already too late. The humans hadn't just declared war. They had revealed that everything the galaxy thought it knew about them was wrong. On Earth, Admiral Chun stood in the command center watching as humanity's hidden fleets moved toward their targets. 50 years of planning, 20 years of construction, and 6 hours of genocide had led to this moment. All fleets report ready, Admiral, General Williams announced. Fleet compositions? Strike Force Alpha has 500 heavy cruisers approaching the Rigel system. Strike Force Beta has 300 carriers with full drone complements moving toward hegemony space. Strike Force Gamma. The list went on. Ship after ship, fleet after fleet, all moving with deadly purpose toward their assigned targets. Enemy response? Hegemony forces are scrambling to defend their core worlds. Confederation fleets are taking defensive positions but haven't moved to intercept us yet. Sarah nodded. They still think this is a normal war. They expect us to follow galactic conventions, issue ultimatums, negotiate ceasefires. What are our orders when we encounter Confederation ships? Sarah's expression never changed. Any ship that interferes with our operations is an enemy ship. Any species that protects the hegemony shares their guilt. Admiral, communications reported. Admiral Vector is requesting immediate talks. Tell him talks ended when the first human child died under hegemony fire. Now there is only justice. Sarah turned to address her senior staff. The galaxy has lived in peace for 10,000 years because they forgot what war really means. They think it's a game with rules and limits. They're about to remember that war is the ultimate expression of a species' will to survive. She looked at the tactical displays showing human fleets, spreading across the galaxy like an unstoppable tide. We are no longer the protected children they thought they knew. We are what we have always been, the species that refuses to die quietly. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The Battle of Rigel Station began at 0800 hours. Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Zethkri stood on the command deck of his flagship Dominion's Pride. watching the sensor displays with growing confusion. The human fleet approaching Rigel Station appeared to consist of only 50 ships, a pathetically small force compared to his 500-vessel armada. "Are you certain these readings are correct?" Zethkri asked his tactical officer. "Confirmed, sir. 50 human ships, mostly destroyers and light cruisers. Their energy signatures match the primitive vessels we encountered during first contact." Zethkri's scaled lips curved into what passed for a smile among his species. "They're still using chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Have they learned nothing?" "Sir, there is one anomaly. We're detecting unusual readings from the asteroid field surrounding the station." "Define unusual." "Elevated metal content, sir. As if someone has been mining operations there recently." Zethkri dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. "Humans scavenging for resources. It's expected from such a primitive species." The human fleet continued its approach, moving slowly on trails of chemical fire that looked laughably primitive compared to the clean plasma drives of Confederation ships. Zethkri watched with contempt as the humans arranged themselves in a simple battle line formation, tactics that were thousands of years out of date. "All ships, prepare for engagement," Zethkri ordered. "This will be over quickly." But as his fleet moved forward, something unexpected happened. The asteroid field around Rigel Station suddenly came alive with thousands of new contacts. What in the void? Zethkri stared as tiny objects swarmed out of the asteroids like angry insects. Tactical analysis. "Sir, they appear to be mining drones? Very small, minimal energy signatures. They're not showing any weapons." "Then ignore them. Focus on the main human fleet." But Zethkri's certainty began to crack as more sensor readings came in. The mining drones were moving in perfect formation, surrounding his fleet. And the asteroid field itself was revealing hidden surprises. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, voice tight with alarm. "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the asteroid belt. The humans have been hiding something there." "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected any major installations." "Sir, they're not installations. They're weapons platforms, but they're built into the asteroids themselves. They've been there all along, disguised as natural rocks." Zethkri felt the first cold touch of fear. "How many platforms?" "Thousands, sir. Maybe tens of thousands." The human fleet suddenly stopped its advance, holding position at maximum weapons range. Admiral Chun's voice echoed across all frequencies, broadcast in perfect Vorthek. "Admiral Zethkri, you once said that human weapons were toys your hatchlings could build better. Today you'll learn the difference between toys and tools of war." The human ships opened fire, but not with the primitive weapons Zethkri expected. Instead of simple metal projectiles, they launched streams of objects that accelerated to impossible velocities. The kinetic rounds struck his lead ships with the force of small asteroids, punching through shields designed to deflect energy weapons. Shields are ineffective against kinetic weapons at those velocities. His tactical officer reported, "The projectiles are passing right through our defensive fields. Return fire. All ships, concentrate on the human formation." But as Zethkri's plasma cannons charged, the asteroid field revealed its true nature. Hidden weapons platforms emerged from concealment, revealing themselves to be nuclear mines. Thousands of them, positioned throughout the battle space over months of preparation. The first wave of nuclear detonations turned space white. Zethkri's ships, designed for elegant energy-based combat, found themselves trapped in a sphere of atomic fire. Their shields, calibrated for plasma and particle beams, offered minimal protection against raw nuclear force. Damage report. "We've lost 40 ships in the first exchange. The humans have turned the entire asteroid field into a weapon." But the worst was yet to come. The small objects that had emerged from the asteroids weren't mining drones. They were something the galaxy had never encountered. Artificial intelligences housed in small, agile ships that could think and react faster than any organic mind. Sir, the small contacts are attacking our ships directly. They're somehow penetrating our shields. Zethkri watched in horror as hundreds of tiny human vessels swarmed around his massive dreadnoughts. They moved like schools of fish, each one guided by an artificial mind capable of processing tactical data at superhuman speeds. And they weren't just attacking. They were learning, adapting their tactics in real time. How are they getting through our shields? They're not, sir. They're phasing through them. Some kind of temporal displacement technology. That's impossible. Temporal manipulation requires massive energy expenditures. The humans appear to have miniaturized the technology, sir. Each drone carries its own temporal displacement field. Zethkri realized with growing terror that everything the Confederation knew about warfare was obsolete. The humans hadn't just hidden their fleet. They had developed entirely new ways of fighting. All ships fall back to defensive formation, but there was nowhere to retreat. The human battle plan had been executed with precision that spoke of months of preparation. Every asteroid, every piece of debris, every seemingly empty patch of space had been turned into part of a vast weapon system. The human ships themselves began to reveal their true nature. What had appeared to be primitive chemical rockets were actually camouflage for propulsion systems that bent space-time itself. The simple metal hulls opened to reveal weapon systems that shouldn't exist. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a transmission from Captain Morrison of the human vessel Retribution. Put it through." A human face appeared on the screen, young, calm, and absolutely terrifying in its confidence. "Admiral Zethkri, I'm Captain David Morrison. My ship was built in the shipyards above Mars, using technology we developed while you thought we were playing with chemical rockets." Morrison gestured off-screen, and the tactical display showed the Retribution deploying weapons that made Zethkri's scales crawl with instinctive fear. "This is a gravity manipulation cannon," Morrison explained casually. "We learned to turn one of the fundamental forces of the universe into a weapon. Watch." The Retribution fired, and space itself seemed to twist around one of Zethkri's FA cruisers. The massive ship crumpled like paper as localized gravity fields compressed it into a sphere of twisted metal. "We also developed AI companions that can think at digital speeds," Morrison continued. "Each one can coordinate the actions of 1,000 drone ships simultaneously. You're not fighting 50 human ships, Admiral. You're fighting 50,000. The sensor displays confirmed Morrison's words. What had appeared to be a small human fleet was actually a vast swarm of AI-controlled weapons, each one moving with inhuman precision and coordination. "But our favorite innovation," Morrison said, his smile growing cold, "is what we call kinetic bombardment. You see, we took your criticism of our primitive projectile weapons to heart." The human ships fired again, but this time, their weapons were different. Instead of simple metal rounds, they launched projectiles that had been accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. When they struck Zethkri's ships, the impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. "We discovered that if you make a primitive metal bullet go fast enough," Morrison explained, "it becomes the most powerful weapon in the galaxy." Within 2 hours, Zethkri's fleet of 500 ships had been reduced to scattered debris. The humans hadn't just won. They had demonstrated that every assumption the galaxy held about warfare was wrong. Zethkri found himself aboard an escape pod, watching his flagship die in nuclear fire. The last transmission he heard was Admiral Chun's voice, broadcast across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Fleet. The Battle of Rigel Station is concluded. To any Confederation forces still supporting the hegemony, surrender now or face the same fate. Humanity offers this warning only once. As Zethkree's pod drifted through the wreckage of his proud fleet, he understood with absolute clarity that the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. The humans weren't just advanced. They were something the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia, a species that treated war as a science to be perfected rather than a game to be played, and they had had 50,000 years to perfect it. 6 months after the Battle of Rigel Station, the combined fleets of 47 alien species gathered at Centauria Prime for the final stand against humanity. Admiral Vector stood in the command center of the TTD, massive space station that served as the Confederation's capital, watching the largest military force in galactic history assemble. Over 10,000 ships from dozens of species had answered the call to stop the human advance. "Status report," Vector ordered. "All Allied fleets are in position," his tactical officer reported. "The hegemony survivors have integrated with our formations. Every major species has contributed ships to the defense." Vector nodded, but he felt no confidence. In 6 months, humanity had shattered every military force sent against them. The hegemony's core worlds were now human-occupied territory. 3 Confederation task forces had been destroyed attempting to stop the human advance. And with each victory, the humans had revealed new technologies that made alien defenses obsolete. What's our intelligence assessment of human capabilities? They've consistently deployed forces far beyond what should be possible, Intelligence Director Keschel reported. Their ship construction rates suggest manufacturing capabilities that dwarf our own. And their AI systems? Keschel paused. "Sir, we believe each human admiral can control fleets numbering in the thousands through artificial minds that think faster than any organic intelligence. And their weapons? Gravity manipulation, temporal displacement, kinetic bombardment at relativistic speeds, and nuclear devices that make our most powerful weapons look like fireworks. But sir, that's not what makes them truly dangerous. Explain." "They don't fight like any species we've encountered. They don't follow conventions of warfare. They target civilian infrastructure, use their enemies' expectations against them, and employ tactics that our military academies would consider dishonorable." Vector's aide approached with an urgent message. "Sir, we're detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system." "The human fleet?" "Yes, sir. And it's larger than expected." Vector moved to the main tactical display, watching as sensor contacts began appearing throughout the outer system. At first, there were hundreds of ships, then thousands, then tens of thousands. "How many ships are we detecting?" "Sir, the count is approaching 50,000 contacts. And they're still appearing." Vector felt his confidence crumble. The largest fleet in galactic history suddenly seemed very small. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of her flagship, Indomitable, watching the alien Armada through the main viewer. After 6 months of constant warfare, she had changed. The curious explorer who had made first contact was gone, replaced by something that made hardened Marines step carefully around her. "Enemy force assessment," she ordered. 10,400 ships of various classes, her tactical officer reported. Every major Confederation species is represented. They've assembled everything they have. And our force? 48,000 combat vessels, 200,000 support craft, and approximately 1 million AI-controlled fighters. Sarah nodded. The numbers told the story of humanity's transformation. While the galaxy had spent thousands of years growing comfortable, humans had spent that same time perfecting the art of war. Now the galaxy faced the full might of a species that had never forgotten how to be dangerous. "Admiral," Communications Officer Rodriguez said, We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Vector. Put him through. The familiar alien face appeared on the screen. But Vector looked older, more worn than Sarah remembered from their first meeting. Admiral Chun, Vector began. I'm calling to propose negotiations. Surely we can find a peaceful resolution to this conflict. The time for negotiation ended when the hegemony murdered 2 million humans while you watched, Sarah replied. This isn't about territorial resources anymore, Vector. This is about justice. What justice requires the conquest of the entire galaxy? Sarah's smile was cold. We're not conquering anyone. We're removing an order that allowed genocide. When this is over, every species will be free to govern themselves. But they'll do it under human protection. You cannot impose peace through superior firepower. Can't we? Your precious Confederation maintained peace for 10,000 years through the threat of superior technology. The only difference is that now humanity holds that advantage. Vector's expression grew desperate. Admiral, you must understand. If you defeat us here, you'll become everything the galaxy fears. A single species with the power to dominate all others. Good, Sarah said simply. Fear will keep the peace better than your polite treaties ever did. The transmission ended, and Sarah turned to her fleet commanders. All ships, begin the attack. Rules of engagement are simple. Any ship that fires on us is destroyed. Any ship that surrenders will be spared. Any ship that runs away will be allowed to go. Admiral, General Morrison asked, what if they don't surrender? Then we remind the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity's children. The Battle of Zentaria. Prime began with the humans doing something no galactic military mind had expected. They announced their attack plan in advance. Attention Confederation forces. Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. In 1 hour, we will begin our assault on Zentaria Prime. We will not target civilian areas or surrender ships. We recommend you evacuate all non-essential personnel from military vessels. The aliens spent that hour in frantic preparation, trying to understand why the humans would give up the advantage of surprise. They didn't realize that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't surprise. It was the absolute certainty that they would do exactly what they promised. When the attack began, it wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. The human fleet advanced in perfect formation. Their AI commanders processing tactical data faster than any organic mind could follow. As alien ships opened fire with plasma cannons and particle beams, the human vessels seemed to dance between the attacks. Their movements coordinated with impossible precision. The return fire from humanity's fleet turned space into a cauldron of destruction. Kinetic rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through alien armor like tissue paper. Gravity manipulation weapons crushed massive dreadnoughts into balls of twisted metal. And nuclear fire consumed everything that tried to stand against them. But the most terrifying aspect of the human attack was its restraint. When alien ships powered down their weapons and transmitted surrender codes, the human vessels immediately ceased fire. When escape pods launched from destroyed ships, human rescue vessels moved to pick up survivors. They're following the rules of war, one Confederation admiral whispered in amazement. But rules we've never seen before. Within 4 hours, the largest military force in galactic history had been reduced to scattered survivors and floating wreckage. But unlike previous human victories, this time there were tens of thousands of alien survivors in human custody. Admiral Vector found himself aboard the Indomitable, sitting across from Admiral Chun in her ready room. He was technically a prisoner, but he had been treated with honor and respect. Why? He asked. You could have killed us all. Why show mercy? Sarah poured 2 cups of coffee, offering one to Vector. Because this was never about revenge. It was about making sure this never happens again. And you think you can accomplish that through conquest? Not conquest, protection. Sarah activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. For 10,000 years, your Confederation maintained peace through a balance of power. But that balance failed when someone decided human lives were expendable. The display changed, showing human fleets positioned throughout galactic space. From now on, peace will be maintained by human guarantee. Every species will be free to govern themselves, trade with whom they choose, and live as they see fit. But they'll do it under our protection. And if someone objects to human protection, Sarah's expression didn't change. Then they can discuss it with our fleet. Victor studied the human admiral, finally understanding what the galaxy was dealing with. You're not conquerors. You're shepherds. Shepherds with very sharp teeth, Sarah agreed. The galaxy had its chance to police itself. It failed. Now humanity will do the job. Over the following months, the new galactic order took shape. Human fleets positioned themselves at strategic points throughout known space. Former Confederation worlds found themselves free to choose their own governments, but with human advisors ready to intervene if anyone threatened their neighbors. The hegemony species were relocated to reservation worlds, where they could live peacefully under careful observation. Their military capabilities were permanently dismantled, and their leaders faced trial for genocide. Most surprisingly to many aliens, the humans kept their promises. Species that had expected brutal occupation instead found themselves with more freedom than they'd had under Confederation rule. Trade flourished under human protection. Exploration resumed with human escort. And conflicts were resolved by human arbiters before they could escalate to warfare. A year after Zentaria Prime, Admiral Chun stood in her ready room, reading reports from across the galaxy. Crime was down. Trade was up. For the first time in centuries, no species lived in fear of conquest or extinction. Dr. Webb's voice came through the intercom. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyri Republic.